All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording on a Monday afternoon. Today we're going to talk all NBA. We'll talk Rookie of the Year market, Sixth Man of the Year, and then close out by looking at Tuesday's matchups on the slate. But let's start off with the Rookie of the Year. We're going to talk about one stable-ish market in Sixth Man and one very unstable market in Rookie of the Year. Kel'el Ware, who was off the board 10 days or so ago. He's now the 2-1 favorite after becoming the starter in Miami. Stephon Castle, who cannot throw it into the ocean. He is plus 275. Alex Sarr, also known non-ocean thrower, plus 350. Jaylen Wells, plus 350. Zach Edey is 14-1. And there ends for now, I think, the realistic list of candidates, unless someone wants to come from the clouds. Do you have a read on this market, Drew?
Well, I certainly didn't have a read that Kel'el Ware was coming. And I'm searching for kind of some truth here on whether his, kind of outstanding play from the 19th to the 23rd is something we can expect to continue, or whether that was a little bit of a flash in the pan. He has had 4 20-point games in the month of January so far. In January, he is averaging 13.1 with 7 rebounds. That's impressive for, what is a player that I didn't really have on my bingo card as getting this role with a team like the Heat. But, he fits nicely with what they're trying to do. And, it's very possible that he's going to continue to get this kind of, just in general, have this role, have these, this minutes load and get this kind of usage. And it's also fascinating to me that they're running so much offense through him, honestly. Like I need to get it somewhere. And the fact that he's getting up, in the high teens field goal attempts per game recently is pretty amazing. I kind of lean towards this is a little bit of a flash in the pan. His most outstanding games came against some pretty high pace games where he had minutes in like the mid to high 30s. That's a lot. I don't know that, a rookie would necessarily be able to be expected to carry that forward for the next 2.5 months. But if he does, then yes, this price is reasonable. Now, when you kind of dig into the advanced stats, they do not love Mr. Ware. He has got a huge gap to make up on some of the other centers who are playing good basketball right now in the rookie class, most notably Zach Edey. Zach Edey still stands alone when you look at some of the efficiency stats as far as his contributions, and his offense has gotten, substantially better, I think, over the last, really over the balance of this month. Now, he's not putting up, numbers that are kind of as impressive as Ware has over this stretch, but his 19-point outbursts recently I think caught a lot of attention, and the fact that the advanced numbers and the predictive stuff and the expected going forward kind of player level ratings hold Edey so much higher than Ware. I think that that's probably too big of a gap in price. 2-1 for Ware versus 14-1 for Edey. The rest of the guys in the mix, Castle and Sarr, are complete tosses for me. I know that in general they're going to continue to get usage and run regardless of how they're playing, but in the kind of tank mode for the Wizards, the more Sarr the better for losing games, I think. So I find it very, very tough to believe that the voters will reward that quality of play, and I think. This goes to a Grizz, whether it's, we talked about this at length, whether Wells was going to be able to hang on to this role once, they're at full strength. They continue to push Marcus Smart's return for the Grizzlies deeper into the future. Would you agree that Edey's role feels a little bit more stable with the Grizz right now than Wells?
Yeah, I do. I do agree with that. I think with Wells, who is thought of as this really high floor candidate because he's averaging 11.9 points per game. He's, surface level, reasonably efficient. But the thing is that he's been doing this without Marcus Smart, without Vince Williams, who's about to come back. And for the most part, without G.G. Jackson, who is now back and playing, like he played 24 minutes last game, although the game got out of hand a little bit at the end. Like the last game that Marcus Smart played, Jaylen Wells played 18 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I think that Wells thing with Wells is that, and why he certainly can't be dismissed or anything, is that he would win a vote today. Like I think he's effectively 100% to win a vote today, and we're 46 games into the season. And the class is not super inspiring. So he's definitely a chance to win. But I do think there is huge downside where, like, I think the median outcome for Jaylen Wells is going to be that he's playing like between like 18 and 22 minutes a night when Vince and Smart are back, and maybe he keeps starting. But I don't think he's going to keep having these 30-minute games. Like, team invested a fair bit in Marcus Smart. Like, he's in theory, a big part of this team. He was closing over Wells the last time we saw him. And like Wells is fine. He's not great. Like, he's not, and I don't think in terms of like reaching high-end outcomes that, you know, he is favorite to be the best guy out of this wing rotation who is ultimately going to be closing games most nights in the playoffs. So I think ultimately it's going to be, you know, Jenkins riding the hot hand night by night, and a lot of nights it's not going to be Jaylen Wells, and he's going to play 18, 19 minutes a night on occasion. So I think with Wells, I think he's still like he's the default winner if other guys fall over. I don't think he really has a ceiling unless the Grizz take on more injuries, but he needs everyone else to kind of fall over, which, to be fair, the class has been pretty good at falling over so far. That's why he would win a vote held today. So I think he's certainly live. The two guys you threw out, Castle and Sarr, for the most part, I agree, and I'm much more on your side than people who are bullish on these guys. Like, just like if you're bullish, if anyone is listening who's bullish on Alex Sarr, like, what is the path to Sarr actually winning? Like, how does he actually win the award? Is it the Wiz trade off pieces and he starts putting up huge lines, playing 36 minutes a night, and just counting stats carry him there on one of the worst teams? Like, maybe. Like, I don't think it's 0%, but I don't think it's more than like 5-6%.
Yeah.
And then with Castle, Sarr and Castle, they both have the same issue. Like, I think that the way I would look at this race in a way is that there's two high upside guys to me, and that's Ware and Edey. There's Wells, who just kind of exists, living in his own Rookie of the Year candidate apartment that is not a great apartment, but is livable and may end up being the best thing on the market. And then there's these two guys in Castle and Sarr who just aren't good on offense. And Sarr is destructively bad. Castle is quite bad. And the thing with Castle in particular, who I think does have more upside than Sarr, and there are definitely worlds where Castle could win, is that for him to win this award, like, he can't keep shooting like 40% from the field and 26% from three and below average from the line and being one of the least efficient players in the NBA to win. Like, he actually has to be like at least like approaching passable. And he wasn't that in college, and he hasn't been that so far in the NBA. So in the final like 35, 40 games, he needs to like get good at offense or fake it for a little bit. And I think that is just, it's a dog. And maybe he'll remain the starter over Sohan as he was in Paris, and maybe the Spurs will kind of recede a little bit from the play-in picture, and they kind of prioritize youth, and Castle puts up big counting stats. But if Castle's putting up big counting stats and like 38% from the floor or whatever, like, he's not going to win the award. You have to be at least passably efficient to win. So what do you think of let's talk about Ware and Edey for a second. What do you think of their upside?
I love the way you framed a lot of that, and I'm laughing over here because in general, the path for Sarr is he has to get good at basketball, and that may take a year or two. Same with the Castle. Like, Castle's 2 years away. He's gonna be a player for a while in this league. He'll be a nice building block with that Spurs team, but it's not going to be in 2025. It's probably not going to be in 2026. So don't hold your breath. Ware and Edey are fun to me because Edey does not. He does not really have any competition for the center spot, whereas Ware, I think there's a world where there's a little bit of a hot hand, and Spoelstra goes back to Jovic, who can kind of do a lot of similar things, and it gives him roster flexibility. I note, it was noted that in a somewhat competitive game against the Nets, that Jovic played almost the whole. He played the entire fourth quarter. He came in halfway through the third and then finished the game there, and we didn't see much Ware in the fourth quarter as we had been previously. And so my antenna is up a little bit where if Ware cools off, this could be, he could lose some of his usage, some of his role in place of Jovic. So considering their prices, I think Edey's the right guy.
Yeah. With Ware, I would say that I think in a way the award is on Kel'el Ware's racket because he just has the most upside. Like no one else is putting up these 22 and 15 games that he is basically. And so I think that he just gets out there and he puts up shots and he's 7 feet tall and it's a lot of dunks. It's a lot of open threes. It's a lot of rebounds, a lot of block shots. He has a statistical profile and just kind of an aesthetic, like this kind of Wemby adjacent aesthetic. Obviously a much poorer man was Wemby, but that all helps him and it will help him potentially come from the clouds. There's this idea that we're halfway into the season, Ware has banked too much of a poor start. Everyone banked a poor start. Everyone he's still averaging almost 9 points per game. That puts him two less than 3 points or whatever off the leader in the clubhouse right now, Jaylen Wells, or right on 3. So I think with Ware, if he keeps starting and he keeps putting up, we're recording this before the game against the Magic, where, he set it 13.5 and 8.5, and, this game's got a low total. So perhaps for the most part, you can expect, the total's 209. So perhaps in a normal game, he's going to be set more 14.5 and 9 or whatever. If he's 14.5 and 9 the rest of the way, with defense and okay advanced stats, and I think he's probably going to win because everyone's going to think he's the best guy and the counting stats are going to be good enough. Maybe he has to outperform that a little bit to actually win, but I think he has the highest end outcomes. The issue is that his fit with Bam is very suspect, and Spoelstra seems to go back and forth on how much he wants to live that life, where the defense has been awesome, as you would expect. You put a 7-footer shot blocker next to Bam, and the defense is probably going to be good. But the offense has been worst in the league levels, and that's with them shooting hot from 3. So there's just a ton of variance with Ware. That's why I think that I still think he is the most likely guy to win just because of the upside. But I think that there is, a ton of downside. To your point, if he's benched for Jovic in 2 games, wouldn't be that surprising. If he's the starter playing 28 minutes a night, 28, 30 minutes a night, putting up 17 and 11, that wouldn't be that surprising either. So I think there's just, a world of outcomes with him. I think the best bet at price right now, though, is Edey, who is 14-1 at MGM. Turn the corner a little bit the past 2 games. I think that there's a couple of things with Edey. One, he's just a very kind of unique player type. And I think the Grizzlies are more figuring out how to maximize him. He's just getting better at kind of finding his spots. He was just completely in absentia for weeks. But now it seems like he has turned the corner a little bit, albeit against some weaker opposition. But I think the big thing with Edey is that, one, his production goes up when Ja Morant is on the court. I think he scores 3 more points per 36 or something with Ja, which makes sense because he is a dependent offensive player outside of offensive rebounding, and Ja Morant is the best guy to set anyone up on that team. So Ja being back helps. And the other thing too is his competition for minutes is Jay Huff. And Jay Huff just isn't as good as Marcus Smart and Vince Williams and these guys who are going to be competing with Wells for minutes, right around the corner. So I think that Edey, his path is, and it's nice because it's positively correlated because the more he plays well, the more minutes he's going to get and the higher upside outcomes he can attain. But I think with Edey, there's definitely worlds where he plays 24 minutes a night the rest of the way, 24, 25 minutes. He's 13 and 9 rest of the way with blocks and the best advanced numbers and the best on-off. And Wells kind of recedes a little bit as the rotation gets fuller and Edey kind of becomes the candidate for that team. And he's just a starting center on a 53-win 3 seed or whatever who's adding value each night and is a very unique player. So look, I don't think 13 and 9 is a median outcome by any means. It's probably more a 75th, 80th percentile outcome for Edey. Judging by the prop market, night to night on Edey would be even, a more fanciful outcome than that. I'm a bit higher on Edey night to night than the market. So I think that however you slice it in this field, I just don't think Zach Edey can be 14-1.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was notable that Taylor Jenkins basically finally, and some of this is because Morant's been availability has been a little all over the place. But in that game against the Jazz, which maybe you don't want to use that as that instructive because the Jazz aren't really playing competitive basketball. But he basically kept Edey and Morant paired on and off for their that rotation, and it was the most impressive Edey's performed all season that I've seen. So I think that that having a likelihood of carrying through February into March as the Grizz kind of march their way to, Western, a high seed in the Western Conference seems likely to me. So Edey 14-1 actually feels like a very good bet if I'm being honest.
Yes, I would agree. I think to wrap it the way that I would kind of order this market at the moment, I would have Ware slight favorite, but a clear dog against the field. I would have Wells just behind him. I would have Edey just behind Wells, and then a bit of a drop off to Castle, and then I guess Alex Sarr next after that, just because there's no one else. But yeah, I think that I think Edey is the better price, but I think Ware is the most likely guy to win. But this market fluctuates every night. If the Ware plays 15 minutes and is benched against the Magic, then we go back to the drawing wall. If Ware drawing board, if Ware drops like 30 and 15 against the Magic, well, the market's going to kind of feel a little bit over because he's just got that kind of upside. So a lot of variance there. Okay. Wolves look to stay out of the relegation zone. Let me tell you, Wolves could use Kel'el Ware and his upside the way that they are absolutely struggling at the moment. This weekend, when they host Ollie Watkins and Aston Villa, catch the matchup at noon Eastern this Saturday, only on NBC and Peacock. Okay, sixth man of the year. They're all strange markets. This one is perhaps less strange, though, because it is anchored by fairly solid favorite in Payton Pritchard, who is minus 175. DeAndre Hunter, who has been the number 2 in the market for a while. He is 5-1, starting to trend in the wrong direction for Mr. Hunter and the Hawks, though. Amen Thompson, who I think on merit should win the award right now, though we'll get into the kind of crux of his case and whether he's going to remain the starter. He's 6-1. Santi Aldama is 8-1. Naz Reid, my beloved, is 20-1, same price as Malik Beasley. Bobby Portis is 80-1. He's not going to win. Bradley Beal is 100-1. I don't think he's going to win either. What do you think of Pritchard as a minus 175 favorite? Do you think he is infallible, or is he more fallible than the price would suggest?
I hate it. I would love to be writing 175s if I was a bookmaker on Payton Pritchard. This feels very tenuous. I get like his foothold at the top of the board. It feels very fragile to me. He obviously is going to get whatever kind of bump comes from the Celtics pushing this narrative and kind of making him their candidate. And really, like, the Celtics don't have anything else going for them as far as a likely award winner. You're probably going to see some Tatum first team, all NBA first team. But outside of that, there's not a lot to really glow about individual performances outside of Pritchard. So maybe the Celtics machine is enough to get him across the line. But I thought Hunter was coming hard for him until he started fading a bit. Hunter's issue, and actually, which is this, we should just say this out loud, I guess. Sixth man of the year does not require both rookie of the year and sixth man of the year are insulated from the games played requirement that a lot of the other awards are. So the fact that Hunter has only played 29 games does not scare me. Pritchard, of course, has played 46 for the Celtics at this point and has accrued the most bench scoring in terms of total points. Even though they're, when you break it down by per game, it starts to look a little bit less impressive compared to some of these other guys. But I love me some Naz Reid still. I think the chances for him to go back to back in this award are very, very real. I love me some Malik Beasley. Honestly, I think is going to be a candidate. And your point about Thompson being the rightful winner is that hits home very sincerely, because I have been wildly impressed with his step forward this year, and I think the Rockets in general are for real. Not just because they're coming off a couple impressive wins against the Cavs where they had a nice rest advantage in both spots, but and they have another one tonight against the Celtics. But I think just in general, this does not feel like a runaway at all, and it's going to take the Celtics kind of gaming the media on this one for it to be for this price to be fair. And I don't know. It doesn't feel like people. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of support for the Celtics getting this in a unanimous type of vote, considering that there are some other good candidates. And didn't mention Jonathan Kuminga, who's now playing a lot off the bench. His bench production per game has been pretty important and could carry forward. Are there any other kind of like true outsiders that you think could steal this?
I mean, like if Bradley Beal keeps on coming off the bench and averages 20 a game the rest of the way while the Suns surge, then maybe. But like he is coming from so far back, and no one's going to want to vote for Bradley Beal, and he may not even be a Phoenix Sun by the time that everyone listens to this tomorrow. So I don't like he has a lot of upside, more upside than Bobby Portis. Kuminga, it doesn't seem like he's coming back soon is the issue, and there's like it seems like it might be like after the All-Star break, which might be a little bit too far for Kuminga. I think the way that I would think about this market, there's kind of two elements. One is that Payton Pritchard for, I think, like 21 games now has been averaging like 11 points per game while shooting like fine. Like I think 38% from three and playing like 28 minutes a game. It's just the usage has just gone to nothing since Porzingis came back. And like Celtics have even been resting guys in that stretch. And he's still just, the usage just isn't there. Each night in the market when the team is fully healthy, he's being set at like 10.5 points. And so if he was to average, like if he was just to maintain this, if this is just who he is now, if he's an 11 point per game guy the rest of the way, then he ends up at like 12.8 points per game. So that is very beatable. Now, you might say that, they might rest guys even more. He's just bound to have more scoring explosions than he was earlier in the season. His median outcome is like low 13s, which is probably where I would have him. Again, that is beatable, but I think it's pretty high floor. I think the award is on the racket of Ime Udoka and Jabari Smith's hand. Because I think that if Jabari Smith's hand heals, for him to come back just first game after the All-Star break, which would be like, I think 8 weeks after his injury. And that's like at the far end of his timetable. I don't know what's going on with his hand. If he's missing more than 8 weeks with a broken hand, that's not very normal. Mm-hmm. But if he comes back and he is the starter, and Amen Thompson is off the bench. If Amen starts every game from now till the All-Star break, I think he'd have like 25 starts. And then, say that he has a few spot starts after the break and he ends up at like, 50 games off the bench, 28 starts, something like that. I think that Amen is good enough and is beloved enough that he would beat Pritchard in that scenario. The issue is that it just seems ridiculous that they would move Amen Thompson back to the bench because he's like the second best player on the team almost. So that's why I think that he shouldn't be the favorite for the award or anything, but I do think he is the second most likely just because I think you mainly just need that one thing. You just need the one element to go your way there. And I don't really know how to price that. Like, I don't know the likelihood that he does go back to the bench. Certainly has to be some likelihood. But I would make it the favorite. Just reading the tea leaves, my gut sense is that he probably remains the starter. So then, like, who else can beat Pritchard? Like, particularly if he's at like 13 points per game, like Malik Beasley, whose usage has gone up, I believe, since Jaden Ivey got hurt. He's averaging like almost 16.5 points per game. If he's at like 16.5, 17 points, I mean, so he's at 17 points per game. The Pistons like 42 and 40, a super feel good team, and Pritchard's at like 13.0 points per game. I think Beasley can get him there. Naz is an interesting one because I think Naz is like this super high floor candidate who's like a great chance to come third and not really much chance to actually win because like the high end outcome for Naz is probably like 15 points per game and the Wolves being like a 48 win 4 seed. Like, I'm not sure that even beats Pritchard at like 13 points per game when Pritchard is more efficient on a better team, better advanced stats. Like, I just find it hard to see Naz reach the ceiling outcomes where he can actually win and beat Pritchard and beat I don't think he's going to beat Thompson if Thompson's a candidate by the season's end, but I just don't really like his matchup head to head with Pritchard. But what do you think about Naz?
So I'm like it looks to me at least like he's one of the only good things going for the with Timberwolves. His performance is like he looks a little bit better than he did last year, and he won last year. So that's kind of where I was sort of like, I mean, there could be sort of a fallback where, that's just the guy if ultimately people aren't impressed enough by Beasley or Pritchard. Beasley, to me, at least that price is the one that I want to make the most strong case for here. And I think it is you're pointing out fairly. I think that he is absorbing some usage with injuries. Otherwise, kind of giving making this an opportunity for him realistic. But I think ultimately, Ivy, I believe will come back this year at some point.
It's gonna be late though.
It's gonna be late. It's gonna be late. Yeah, it'll be like April probably, right? Maybe the end of March.
I mean, he broke his leg. Like, I guess guys come back. Apparently, he broke his leg in like the best way possible. Which is a strange way to put it, but apparently, like, he broke a certain part of it, even though it looked really bad. That apparently he's gonna try and come back.
I think we're expecting a reevaluation by the end of this week on him, so we'll have more news shortly. But my kind of handwriting, or my kind of notes were like expect him late March, early April. So Beasley, I think, is still going to continue to get this type of run, and I think he could firm in this market by to the point where it could be a done deal. I like the Pistons too, just in general. Like, I think this team is they're a great story, and I think I don't agree that Cade Cunningham should be as big of a favorite as he is for most improved, but that said, it to me feels like Malik Beasley could be the outsider that steals this, and I love that price.
Yeah, I think that would be, and I don't feel amazing about it because it is Malik Beasley on a, probably a 500-ish Pistons team. But like, you have to think about these awards not in terms of median outcomes, particularly with long shots, but like, what is their upside? And there are worlds where Malik Beasley is like around 17 points per game on a Pistons team that's gone 14 to 42 wins and, is flirting with a 6 seed. And if he's like edging Payton Pritchard, I think there's going to be an interesting vote. And I hope, beyond the fact that I don't have Payton Pritchard in this market, so I'd like to see him lose. But it will be interesting if we do get a head-to-head between like Pritchard and Thompson, or Pritchard and Beasley, with Beasley having much better or bigger counting stats, and just get a test case of how much voters value importance to team. Because come playoff time, Payton Pritchard is going to be 7th on the Celtics in minutes. He's going to be the 5th leading scorer on the team in the regular season. Their biggest game of the year against the Thunder, which, to be fair, is a very bad matchup for Pritchard. Like, he played like 11 minutes and didn't score. Like, he's very good. I'd vote for Amen Thompson, but I'd vote for Pritchard second. Okay. But he is not super essential to his team the way that Amen is essential to the Rockets, where Amen is like the 2nd or 3rd best player on the Rockets. Malik Beasley is the 2nd highest scorer on the Pistons, once you take out the fact that like Ivy's not going to qualify for that type of stuff with all of his games missed. Naz Reid is probably more important to the Wolves than Pritchard is to the Celtics. I guess I haven't really thought that one through, but I mean, the case against it would be that we kind of saw this with Brogdon and quickly, and Brogdon won fairly comfortably. But I do think that may seep in, particularly if Pritchard's going to just be like 11 points per game rest of the way. Last one before we move off, just because he is the 2nd favorite in the market. I don't feel good about DeAndre Hunter in this market at all, now that we still don't have word on Jalen Johnson's shoulder. Didn't look good. The fact that he has no timetable to return, I would think there's just a pretty good chance DeAndre Hunter is going to be the starter moving forward. And we're talking about this before we know whether he's starting or what the situation is with this Monday night game against the Wolves. But like, I don't think the Hawks are very good, particularly if Jalen Johnson's out, long term. There's a good chance that Hunter will start. He's kind of trending the wrong way anyway. Wouldn't put a line for him because maybe Jalen Johnson's back in 2-3 weeks or whatever, and it's just a subluxation and not like something that requires surgery, and the Hawks stay afloat. And by the end of the season, DeAndre Hunter is still like 18.5 points per game on a Hawks team that lucks its way a little bit to 43 and 39. But like, his price, I think right now is poison. And I don't think ultimately, until we have clarity around Johnson, that he is really super in the mix. But we'll see.
Yep. That
Cool.
sounds fair. I just want to honorable mention to just the Oklahoma City Thunder bench. That's the best bench unit in basketball by margin. But there's no one player that really stands out there. So the group kind of hat tip to Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, and Alex Caruso is probably actually the true kind of bench unit that deserves recognition. But the sixth man role, I think Malik Beasley's coming. Like,
Okay. I'd
like
love to hear it.
yeah. He kind of fits exactly sort of like what people expect out of that.
Yeah. And
Comes in halfway through the first, plays the whole fourth quarter. Like,
yeah. And he's, people just love the Pistons. People love this Pistons team. And that's kind of the best thing that he has going for him. And he's got the best on-off of any of the, like, I think the Pistons, like, his on-off is like +6 in terms of when he's on the court versus off. And Pritchard's solid. Like, the Celtics are better with Pritchard on the court. That's a feather in Pritchard's cap. But Beasley, like, leads the way there. And, he's shooting 40% from three, and he's the second leading scorer on the team. And it's a feel-good team. So that'll be his path. Okay, watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berry. So they cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbcsports.com/now.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out with the Tuesday slate of games. Small slate, just 4 games. Lakers on a back-to-back against Sixers on national TV. Rockets at Hawks in the makeup game from that snow cancellation. Jazz at the floundering Warriors, and then the Bucks at Blazers. So nightcap on TNT. Do you have any bets in the slate, Drew?
Yeah, so this is a cool one because there are 3 very lopsided rest advantages for the home teams on Tuesday. It's a hold your nose and get involved with Philly. It's a get excited to bet against the Jazz with the Warriors, and then kind of excited to see how many points we get with the Trailblazers against the Bucks. So yeah, all 3 home teams are probably going to make my card once we see some prices. The Lakers are Sixers probably the most fun one to talk about because of the moving parts right now. The Lakers, of course, were expecting tonight that they're effectively going to be at full strength. LeBron is probable. Anthony Davis is probable. And these guys are probably going to get their normal minutes load against the Hornets team that is not competing effectively well right now. Hornets buried me on Friday. That was a brutal surprise, no ball, and then just no compete. I think the Lakers come through pretty cleanly tonight, and there's a very real chance that you get surprise rest for both Anthony Davis and LeBron tomorrow. So I'm going to hit that Sixers number the minute we see a market open up. The Sixers are very confusing to me right now in terms of like just what happens from here. I do not have a strong read that this team is going to try to find their feet at some point and really put together a stretch of winning basketball to get their way into a play-in. I do not have any real serious conviction on what happens to Embiid from now to the end of the season. Paul George also similarly, him being shut down at some point could could very well come, and this team just literally just doesn't really have any fight left in them this year. Like, that's all very real. That said, catching the Lakers in this spot is going to be pretty solid. Right now, the Lakers are being treated like a +2. That is 2 points better than an average on a neutral. I don't agree with that. My number for the Lakers is a little bit lower than that. I'm like about 1.3 for them. And Philly is being treated in the market like a -4-ish team right now. And I do agree with that without Paul George. And I guess, do you have a general feel or read or just a crystal ball prediction about what happens between now and the end of the season for Philly?
I mean, it seems like some of the reporting is going more in the direction of them selling off some parts, like Caleb Martin. Like, the reality is that I get that it's kind of a lost season, and, well, lost-ish. It's just been a disaster so far, and you want to not push the chips in to try and make a run to the finals as a 9 seed. But at the same time, like, Joel Embiid's about to turn 31. Paul George is 34. Like, I don't think you're really in position. I think you just have to go for it every single year, because these guys are only going to get worse. Maxey is the only material piece on the team who's young. Like, I just think that you have to you signed Paul George for a reason. I get that it's been bad with Embiid this year, but he has at least shown some flashes. And so I think just if Embiid is healthy, or you have any hope that he's going to be healthy this season, then you just have to kind of put all your chips in towards winning. I don't think you're like, you sell off assets to try and add a piece to this team in the hopes of, like beating the Pistons in the 9-10 or whatever, and then getting into the playoffs through 2 play-in rounds. But I don't really see the sense in trading guys off to reload for next year with a 32-year-old Joel Embiid and the 35 going on 36 Paul George. So these Sixers games are such a mess at the moment. Like, it's a lot of like, Yabusele on the short roll, like trying to fit. Like, it's just not good. It's not a good scene in Philly. Yeah. They keep on ending up in these clutch games, and Maxey is pumping his stats there, but it's just a mess. Like, the issue is, like, Paul George is averaging 17 points per game as basically the second guy all year. It just seems like he's just not the same player. And I know he's dealt with some injuries, but yeah, they are a debacle at the moment. You mentioned the Hornets before. LaMelo Ball has to be like the greatest kind of overlap between amazing passer and empty calorie stat guy. Like, most of these empty calorie stat guys are like chuckers who average, 21 and 2. LaMelo is an outlier, amazing passer, and still just seems, largely empty calories, though I think he is a very good offensive player. But yeah, anyway, little LaMelo Ball tangent.
The Embiid part of the equation for me for Philly is really, I mean, that's everything, right? You mentioned his age. It's a concern. The degenerative knee is a concern. The last time I heard anything about what was going on with him was January 17th, and they said they'll reevaluate him in 7 to 10 days. Well, guess what, Jay? It's been 10 days. I've heard nothing. It's not a good sign. And maybe tomorrow, with like kind of a smaller slate and a little bit more focus on basketball, now that football is kind of in a little bit of a hiatus while we wait for the Super Bowl, like, maybe there's some new reporting on this, and by the time you're listening to this, maybe you already know that Embiid's ready to return. But his that swings, his singular availability swings my rating for the Sixers right now by almost 6 points, and that is obviously massive for closing the gap and getting into a play-in. And then, there's a world where this team is rated as a favorite in the 9-10 against, let's not put the Pistons down there. Let's throw the Hawks down there. And then they beat the Hawks in the 9-10, and then they're favorites against the Magic in the battle for the 8. I still think the Magic to miss the playoffs is a good bet in the 10-1 range, but that's going to get dicey here with them coming back to full strength. So we'll see. Yeah, I think ultimately the kind of the way that pivots for the Sixers one way or the other here in the coming weeks is going to be fascinating to me. And as long as I'm getting 4.5, 5 points with the Sixers tomorrow against the Lakers on the open, I think that's a pounce because, again, this seems like kind of the ideal opportunity for Mr. Davis and Mr. James to take the night off.
Indeed. Yeah, sorry for putting Detroit in the 9-10. I forgot that Malik Beasley's leading them to the 4th.
He's taking them right to the 6th seed, Jay. Come on.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like the thought process, the positivity. Okay. Yeah, no, I agree on everything. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Shake takes. They still have like really high-end outcomes in theory if Embiid is right. Like still Embiid, Maxey, and the idea of Paul George, if nothing else, for now. Okay, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate or subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we will see you tomorrow.